The wedding venue rose from the hills, like a palace borrowed from another world, white marble steps, crystal arches, fountains whispering over polished stone. Golden ribbons fluttered in the breeze, and guests in tailored suits and shimmering dresses moved through the gates with laughter and champagne glasses in hand. Everything smelled of roses, money, and certainty. I stood across the street for a moment before crossing, my shoes scuffed but clean, my suit pressed by my own hands at dawn. It was the only one I owned, the same suit I had worn to my wife's funeral and to my daughter's graduation. I adjusted the cuffs, took a slow breath, and held the small wrapped box tighter under my arm. Inside it was a necklace. Simple, not diamonds, just silver with a tiny pendant shaped like a star. When she was little, my daughter used to point at the night sky and tell me she wanted to be as brave as the brightest one. I'd promised her I would always remind her who she was, even when the world tried to tell her otherwise. Today was supposed to be the happiest day of her life. I didn't need to be seen. I didn't need applause or acknowledgement. I just wanted to sit somewhere quiet, watch her smile, and know that she was safe and loved. That was enough. It had always been enough. As I approached the gate, a tall young man in an immaculate suit stepped in front of me. His smile was practiced, empty. Behind him, a security guard shifted his weight, already impatient. "Invitation?" the young man asked, glancing at me the way one looks at something misplaced. "I'm the bride's father," I said gently. My voice carried years of restraint, of learning when to speak softly so life wouldn't push back harder. He laughed, actually laughed, and looked me up and down. "Sir," he said, lowering his voice like he was doing me a favor, "this is a private event. Only important people are allowed here." The words didn't hit all at once. They settled slowly, like dust after something breaks. I raised her. I said, confused more than angry, "I just want to see my daughter get married." His expression hardened. Annoyance replaced amusement. "Listen," he snapped, turning slightly so others wouldn't hear. "You're embarrassing yourself. Don't make this difficult." Then he turned to the guard. "Take him as far away from the celebration as possible." The guard stepped forward, already reaching for my arm. In that moment, I searched the crowd for her face for any sign that she might see me, recognize me, stop this. But all I saw were strangers, people who knew her new name, her new life, her new world, a world where I clearly didn't belong. I didn't resist. I let the guard lead me away, past the flowers, past the music, past the gates that closed behind me with a sound too final for something meant to celebrate love. Each step felt heavier than the last. I had known poverty, I had known grief, I had known nights so long they felt endless. But this quiet dismissal, this erasure hurt in a way I wasn't prepared for. I sat on a stone bench outside the venue, the laughter muffled now, like it belonged to another lifetime. I looked down at the gift in my hands, my fingers tracing the neat fold of the wrapping paper. "I'm still your father," I whispered to no one. After a long moment, I stood up. Maybe I wasn't important anymore. Maybe love, like everything else, had conditions now. I turned away from the wedding, ready to leave before my presence caused any more discomfort. That was when I heard a voice behind me, shaken, disbelieving, loud enough to cut through the music and stop time itself. "It can't be," the voice shouted. "Is it really you?" For a moment, I thought the voice belonged to memory. I didn't turn around right away. Some part of me was afraid that if I did, the past would dissolve into nothing again, the way it always had. The music from the venue continued behind me, distant and unreal, while the world in front of me felt suddenly heavy with things I had spent years burying. "I know that voice," the man said again, closer now. I would recognize it anywhere. Slowly, I turned. The man standing there wore a tailored suit that probably cost more than my car. His hair was grayer than I remembered, his shoulders broader, his face marked by time and responsibility. But his eyes, those I knew, I had seen them once filled with fear, once with gratitude so deep it bordered on tears. He stared at me like he'd seen a ghost. It asterisk is asterisk you, he whispered, after all these years. I nodded once. I didn't smile. Some reunions don't come with warmth, they come with weight. You shouldn't be here, I said quietly. It's your son's wedding. He didn't wait for my answer. The groom's father turned sharply and strode back toward the gates, his steps heavy with purpose. I followed a few paces behind, uncertain, my heart pounding in a way it hadn't for years. With every step, the music grew louder again, the laughter clearer, the world I had been pushed out of opening reluctantly before me. The security guard who had escorted me out stiffened when he saw us returning. Sir, the guard began. Move, the groom's father said, his voice low and absolute. The guard stepped aside instantly. At the gate, the young man. The groom stood laughing with a group of friends, glass raised, perfectly at ease. He turned when he sensed us approaching, his smile already prepared. Then he saw me. The smile vanished. What's going on? He asked, irritation flashing across his face. Why is asterisk, he asterisk, back here? The groom's father stopped in front of him. This man, he said, loud enough for those nearby to hear, is not he. The surrounding conversation slowed. Curious glances turned toward us. This man, his father continued, is someone I owe my life to. The groom frowned. Dad, this isn't the time. It's asterisk exactly asterisk the time. His voice carried not sharp, not loud, but steady. Kind of voice that had built an empire and kept it standing. You ordered security to remove him? He asked. The groom shrugged, trying to regain control. He didn't belong here. This is an exclusive event. I was protecting the family's image. The words stung, though I stayed silent. I had long since learned that people reveal themselves best when they think they're right. The groom's father let out a slow breath, disappointment settling over his features like a shadow. Do you know who this man is? He asked. The groom hesitated. He said he was the bride's father. He asterisk is asterisk the bride's father. His father said. And years ago, he was also the man who saved our family from ruin. A ripple of murmurs passed through the nearby guests. The groom's father turned slightly, his gaze drifting not to me, but to the crowd executives, investors, old friends who understood power even if they didn't recognize humility. When I made the worst mistake of my life. He said, this man could have destroyed me. He had proof. He had the right. Instead, he stayed silent. He stepped away and let me rebuild while he disappeared. The groom's face paled. I never asked him to do that, his father added. He did it because he believed that mercy mattered more than victory. He turned back to his son. And today you called him unimportant. The silence was complete now. Even the music had stopped. I shifted uncomfortably, wishing for invisibility again. This wasn't why I had come, but some truths don't ask permission before they surface. The groom swallowed. I didn't know, he muttered. His father's gaze sharpened. You didn't asterisk care asterisk to know. He turned to the guests, then raised his voice just enough. This wedding does not proceed another second until this man is treated with the respect he deserves. Across the courtyard, I saw her. My daughter stood frozen near the aisle, her white dress catching the light, her face drained of color. Her eyes met mine, wide with shock, then pain, then something like understanding breaking through. She took a step toward me. I clutched the small gift tighter, suddenly afraid of what she might say, afraid of what she might realize too late. The groom's father stepped aside and gestured toward the aisle. Go, he said to me quietly. Your place has always been here. As I took my first step forward, the groom stared at me, not with contempt now, but with something closer to fear. And for the first time that day, the balance of power had shifted, not because I demanded it, but because the truth had finally spoken. That's exactly why I asterisk should asterisk be here, he replied, his voice trembling now. Do you have any idea how many times I wondered if I would ever see you again? I looked away. The truth was, I had planned it that way. Years ago, I had lived a very different life. I wore suits like his. I sat at tables where decisions shaped companies, futures, and sometimes people. My name had carried influence then enough that doors opened without knocking, enough that silence followed when I spoke. But power has a cost. When my wife fell ill, I learned how little money and connections could protect what truly mattered. When she died, something inside me shifted permanently, and when I uncovered a truth that could have destroyed a man standing before me now, a truth born of desperation, not cruelty, I made a choice. I stayed silent. I walked away. I took the blame, absorbed the fallout, and vanished before my daughter could grow up learning that survival sometimes comes at the expense of compassion. I chose a smaller life so she could have a cleaner one. The man in front of me lowered his head. I tried to find you, he said. I owed you everything, my family, my business, my life, and now my son. His voice tightened. He ordered you removed. I didn't answer. I didn't need to. I had learned long ago that dignity doesn't beg for recognition. It simply endures. I didn't come for gratitude. I said, I came to see my daughter. I was leaving. He clenched his fists, anger flickering across his face, not at me, but at the truth settling into place. You were never unimportant, he said. You were just too decent to remind the world who you are. The words landed softly, but they cut deep. For years, I had watched my daughter grow from the sidelines. School plays, graduations, milestones always proud, always quiet. I never told her what I'd given up. Love doesn't keep score, but standing there, humiliated outside the gates of her wedding, I wondered if silence had been a mistake. Inside the venue, the music faltered. A pause rippled through the air, as if the day itself sensed something shifting. The man straightened his shoulders. Come with me, he said firmly. This ends now. I looked back once more at the gift in my hand, then at the closed gates that had separated me from my own child. I didn't know what waited on the other side, but I knew one thing for certain. The past I had buried was done being silent. The walk down the aisle felt unreal. Every eye followed me, yet I felt strangely invisible, like the man I had been all these years, moving quietly through life, unnoticed but steady. The music never resumed. No one dared to speak. The grandeur of the wedding had softened, shrunk, as if stripped of its arrogance and left with only its truth. My daughter broke from her place and ran to me, Papa. Her voice cracked, and in that single word I heard the child she once was, the girl who used to fall asleep on my chest while I worried about bills and tomorrow. Her arms wrapped around me tightly, as if afraid I might disappear again. I'm here, I said softly. I've always been here. She pulled back, tears streaming down her face. Why didn't you tell me? She whispered. Why did I let them treat you like that? I brushed a strand of hair from her face the way I had when she was small. Because love isn't loud, I said, and because I wanted you to choose your life freely, not out of obligation to my past. Behind her, the groom stood stiff and pale. The confidence he wore earlier had drained away, replaced by panic and humiliation. He took a hesitant step forward. I didn't know who you were, he said, trying to steady his voice. I looked at him for a long moment. That, I replied calmly, is exactly the problem. There was no anger in my tone, no accusation, just truth. And it landed heavier than shouting ever could. The groom's father stepped beside me and faced the guests. I owe this man an apology, he said, not privately, publicly. He bowed his head, just slightly, but enough. A powerful man, lowering himself without being asked. Gasps rippled through the crowd. This wedding, he continued, was meant to celebrate love and character. If either is missing, it should not go forward blindly. The groom opened his mouth to protest, but my daughter raised her hand. She turned to him, her eyes clearer now, steadier. You didn't stop them, she said quietly. You didn't even ask who he was. You saw my father being humiliated. And you agreed with it? Her voice didn't tremble. I can forgive ignorance, she said. I can't forgive cruelty. The words echoed through the courtyard. Silence followed, heavy, final. Then she slipped her arm through mine. I choose the man who taught me dignity. she said. Even when it cost him everything. The wedding was called off without drama, no shouting, no chaos. Just a quiet unraveling of something that should never have been tied together in the first place. Later, as guests departed in stunned whispers, my daughter and I sat on the same stone bench where I had nearly vanished an hour earlier. The sun dipped low, painting the sky in gold and pink. I handed her the small box. She opened it slowly, then smiled through tears when she saw the necklace. "You remembered," she said. "I always do." I replied. She clasped it around her neck and rested her head on my shoulder. "I'm sorry it took today for me to truly see you," she whispered. I kissed the top of her head. "Sweetheart," I said gently. Being seen was never my revenge. She looked up at me, confused. I smiled, soft, tired, complete. "Living with love," I said, "always is." And in that moment, surrounded by the ruins of pride and the quiet triumph of truth, I finally felt important, not because the world decided so, but because my daughter did.